In his very first college game, an 18-year-old did something even Kevin Durant couldn't do at Texas.
Like it's nothing. In the kitchen chopping onions. Tears falling down.
Tre Johnson dropped 29 points in his debut, a new Texas freshman record. A few weeks later, he erupted for 39 points in an overtime thriller.
Fights around the double. They swing it to Tre Johnson. Can't towards the end of the season when they spend some time. Tre Johnson.
Shattering Durant's single-game scoring mark for a Texas freshman. He's breaking records left and right, scoring at will with a silky smooth jumper. So why have so few people heard of him? How does a player this good fly so far under the radar? Let's rewind to the start of the season. Tre Johnson arrived at the University of Texas as a highly touted 5-star recruit from Dallas. At 6'6" with a lethal shooting touch, he already had the attention of the coaching staff. Texas head coach Rodney Terry had been tracking Tre since high school. The first time he saw the kid score 30 in a game, he nicknamed him a young Ray Allen. Expectations were high, and comparison to Kevin Durant's legendary freshman year were whispered all throughout Austin. But from the moment Tre stepped onto the college court, he delivered. In the Longhorns season opener against Ohio State, the true freshman dazzled. 29 points on 10 of 20 shooting, including 5 threes. That broke Durant's school record for a freshman debut. The nation's number 6 ranked recruit was living up to the hype on day one. Texas fans finally had another sensation since the legendary Mo Bamba. Even though Texas lost that opener, Tre's performance was the story. He showcased deep threes, pull-up jumpers, fearless drives, a complete scoring arsenal from a teenager playing his first college game. The freshman phenom had officially arrived, and Coach Terry wasn't shy about praise. In post-game interviews, he essentially said what everyone was thinking. Tre Johnson might be the most dynamic freshman scorer Texas has seen since Durant. And that debut was just the beginning. As the season progressed, Tre Johnson kept piling up buckets and making history. Night after night, he was Texas's go-to guy, and opponents could not slow him down. By mid-season, he was averaging around 20 points per game and leading the team in scoring. It didn't matter if it was a non-conference tune-up or a showdown with a ranked opponent, Tre delivered. One of his first signature moments came in February against number 15 Kentucky. Facing one of the nation's premier programs and a roster full of McDonald's All-Americans, Tre torched the Wildcats for 32 points. He hit disgusting shots, including a dagger 3 in the final minutes to carry Texas to a huge upset win. In that game, he outshined Kentucky's own hyped freshman and proved he belonged at the top. It was the kind of performance that normally would dominate sports headlines, yet somehow it didn't. Then came the Arkansas game, the night Tre Johnson etched his name in Longhorns lore. In a late season matchup on the road, Tre exploded for 39 points, breaking the University of Texas freshman single-game scoring record. Not even Kevin Durant scored that many in one game as a freshman. Tre was unconscious. 14 of 28 from the field, a career-high 7 threes, he scored every single point Texas had in overtime, literally carrying his team on his back. Although Texas fell in a close overtime loss, Tre's 39-point outburst was legendary. Longhorn fans hadn't seen anything like it in almost 2 decades. That was already his third 30-plus point game of the season. By year's end, he had scored 20 or more points in 13 games and was averaging about 20.2 points per game. That made him not only the leading scorer in the SEC, but the highest scoring freshman in the entire country. No freshman in all of America scored more per game than Tre Johnson. He was basically a walking bucket all year long, and he did it efficiently too. Nearly 40% from three-point range and over 87% from the free throw line on the season. Those shooting splits are ridiculous for an 18-year-old playing against grown men in college. Tre's freshman season was, by any measure, one for the record books. He earned SEC Freshman of the Year honors and even made the All-SEC team as a first-year player. In fact, he would be just the 6th freshman in SEC history to lead the conference in scoring. That's how rare his campaign was. And yet, for all these accomplishments, Tre Johnson remained something of a secret outside of Texas. While he was rewriting the record books, the national media and casual fans hardly noticed. How is that possible? A few reasons. First, the Texas Longhorns as a team weren't in the spotlight. Despite Tre's heroics, the Longhorns struggled to string together wins. They hovered around 500 and ended up near the middle of the pack in their first SEC season. By March, Texas was fighting just to make the NCAA tournament, and ultimately didn't make a deep run. In college hoops, team success often drives player hype. Think of freshmen on Final Four teams getting all the attention. Tre didn't get that luxury. He wasn't on the big stage. As a result, many fans simply didn't get to see him play. Secondly, other names just sucked up all the oxygen. 2025 was a year of big-name freshmen and storylines. Cooper Flagg, the phenom at Duke, was all over SportsCenter and social media. Bronny James had paparazzi at his games even when he wasn't playing. And the traditional powerhouses like Duke, Kentucky, and others always have their freshman darlings hyped up. In comparison, Tre Johnson, quietly doing his thing in Austin, got very little national coverage. He wasn't a trending topic on Twitter or the face of a blue blood program, so the spotlight often passed him by. And then there's Tre's own personality and presence. By all accounts, he's a humble, soft-spoken kid who just goes about his work. He's not out there chasing clout or crafting a personal brand on social media. In fact, Tre even joked that he stays off social media because he's too busy in the real world. That kind of mindset is admirable, but it also means fewer viral mixtapes and Instagram highlights for fans to share. No controversial quotes, no flashy self-promotion, just basketball. In an era where some players build a following with off-court antics or constant hype, Tre's old-school, low-key approach kept him out of the gossip headlines. All of these factors combined to make a perfect storm of underrated. Tre Johnson became the invisible star, an elite talent hiding in plain sight. While he was dropping 20-plus points on a nightly basis, much of the college basketball world was busy talking about somebody else. It's almost ironic, the best freshman scorer in the nation was also the most overlooked. NBA scouts, however, were paying attention. Big time. If fans and media were slow to catch on to Tre Johnson, the NBA world certainly wasn't. Because you can't have a teenager lead a Power 5 conference in scoring on efficient shooting and not draw pro interest. As the season went on, draft boards started shifting in a major way. At first, Tre was viewed as a late lottery talent, a nice prospect, sure, but not in that top echelon of names. But with each high-scoring game, each clutch performance, he forced everyone to reevaluate. And by the end of the regular season, the buzz around Tre Johnson had grown from a whisper to a roar in scouting circles. Sports Illustrated even labelled him as one of the most impressive prospects this year, and in their mock draft, they projected him as the number 5 pick. In other words, Tre's name was suddenly right up there with the so-called superstar prospects like Flagg and Harper. What changed? Well, simply put, people realised that Tre's game is tailor-made for the next level. When scouts looked past the lack of media hype and just watched the film, they saw an NBA-ready scorer. They saw a 6'6" guard with a reported 6'10" wingspan. They saw a kid who averaged about 20 points on efficient shooting splits, something that many older college players can't claim. They saw his three-point shooting at 40% and free throw shooting at 88% and recognized a pure shooter with a soft touch, a valuable commodity in the NBA. They watched him create shots off the dribble, coming off screens, pulling up from NBA range with a lightning quick release, and they knew this kid was special. Importantly, Tre proved he could handle a heavy offensive load, meaning the offense ran through him, and he still scored efficiently and consistently. He showed he can be a primary option. For an NBA team drafting in the lottery, that is gold. You're looking at a player who already plays like a pro in many ways. Even Texas's coach, Rodney Terry, when reminiscing on scouting Tre in high school, said he saw shades of a young Ray Allen in him. Ray Allen is one of the greatest shooters ever. That's the level of confidence Tre's own coach had in his shooting ability and work ethic. And Tre validated those lofty comparisons by delivering on the court from day one. Tre just wrapped up one of the most prolific freshman seasons we've seen in years. He broke records held by an NBA legend, led his conference and all freshmen nationally in scoring, and showed a level of offensive polish beyond his age. And yet, he did all this with a fraction of the fanfare that other big-name prospects received. In a way, that makes his story even more compelling. He's the star that nobody saw coming, the assassin in the shadows. Now, Tre's draft stock is soaring, and in a few months, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver will step to that podium and call his name early in the first round. On that night, a lot of casual fans will suddenly ask, who is Tre Johnson? They'll scramble to look up his highlights, and they'll see what they missed. A pure scorer who can light up anybody. The secret will be out. So why was no one talking about him? Maybe we were all too busy looking at the flashy dunks, the famous last names, and the powerhouse programs. Maybe we overlooked a quiet kid in Texas who was just steadily, relentlessly getting pure buckets. But the beauty of basketball is that production speaks loudest in the end. You can only ignore a walking bucket for so long. Tre Johnson is definitely a walking bucket, and now everyone is about to know it. Remember the name.